I'm Lee Spencer with the Racing Boys, and I caught up with Jerry Freeze, and you are the general manager of Front Row Motorsports, correct?
That is correct.
And so we're looking at, you've been in this position now a decade. I had no idea you all had moved from Statesville to Mooresville. I understand you still have the Statesville operation, but what has moving to Mooresville allowed this team to do?
Well, we did move to Mooresville, moved in here in January. We're in the building that originally was built by Sabco Racing in the mid-'90s. I think at the time it might have been the first one to be tagged with the Garage Mahal, and certainly it's been exceeded by many race shops since then, but still a big step up for Front Row Motorsports from where we'd been. But yeah, it's been great to be here. We've got all of our assembly process here in Mooresville, all of our business offices here, the marketing team, but we still have our Statesville shop, and we do all of our fabrication in Statesville. So we've worked really hard to try to keep a connection between the two shops with personnel, so nobody gets lost, and the crew chiefs have spent a lot of time over there. But to answer your question directly about what has being in Mooresville meant for us, it's helped a lot with recruiting people. Just 20 miles from Statesville, but it seems to make all the difference in the world with talking to somebody about coming to work in Mooresville rather than Statesville. And Mooresville is just centrally located here in in this part of the area around Charlotte, and so it's an easier drive from Concord and still an easy drive from Hickory and even Charlotte. We've got a lot of marketing folks from there, and to me that seems to be the biggest impact. It's just on the recruiting side being in this place, along with having more space for sure.
It's kind of quiet around here because a lot of your guys have the day off before they go to Pocono, but you had some big news earlier this week with the crew chiefs swapping around, and I'm just kind of curious, why now? Why was this the time that you felt it was necessary to make that move?
Well, we're not happy at all with where we're at in the point standings with any of our three cars. We've had, I feel like this year we've had, especially with 34 and 38 cars, more speed than a front row car has ever had. It just hasn't translated in the finishes, and so we're not in a good spot with any of the three cars right now. And the 34 car has started to right the ship, I'd say, the last 5 or 6 weeks. Put together some good finishes. They've still had a couple bugaboos that have affected an even better finish, but that group with Drew Blickensturfer and Michael McDowell has been, I think, really kind of coming together. So we didn't want to mess with that dynamic right now, but we just thought it was a good time with still a good bulk of the season left to try to shake things up, to see if we might hit on something by moving the teams around between the 36 and the 38 team. When we thought about it, the personalities of the crew chiefs might actually be a better fit if we did move them with where we're at with drivers, with an experienced driver in David Reagan and a younger driver in Matt Tift. So we took the crew that had been with the 38, moved that over to Matt Tift, and then likewise moved the 36 crew over to David. So, we got 16 races to still see, did we make a good choice? Did we make a poor choice? But I think, just again, looking at the chemistry on the surface of what it could be, I think there's a lot of potential there. And with our teams, we just got to stop with all the self-inflicted issues we've had at the racetrack with speeding penalties and loose wheels and some mechanical gremlins that have been caused by something we could have done a little bit better in our preparation, and even drivers just whacking the wall and getting fenders on tires and having to make pit stops and lose laps. So, we've really caused our problems this year, and if we clean those up, we'll rebound and kind of like the 34 is right now, and I think hit our marks by the end of the season.
Now, you still have a technical alliance with Roush Fenway Racing, correct?
That is correct.
But there's a misconception that you all get your cars from Roush, and can you explain to the listeners pretty much what the assembly line looks like for Front Row as opposed to what the thought might be out there and what actually is the process here?
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that because I think there is a little misperception sometimes that we don't manufacture our own product, that we just buy a car from Roush and go to the racetrack with it. our relationship is, and alliances are a little different from each group that has one. In ours, basically, Roush has a, let's call it a blueprint of how to build a chassis, how to build a body, and then we try to adhere to their specs. So in essence, they become our R&D department. They're telling us how to build the car rather than us having our own R&D department telling us how to build it. And likewise, we take it to the track and then race as teammates with their two drivers, and hopefully we bring information that helps them set up their cars better, and likewise, we share in their information and helping set up our cars and just strengthen numbers there at the racetrack. So if we're not replicating their product, we're giving them poor information. So we work really hard. We take our cars over to their shop at least 2 times before they go to the racetrack, run them across their Hawkeye. Their lead fabricator kind of looks over, what we might have missed somewhere to get that specific spec they're looking for. With this Hawkeye system, you can really show you a lot of details of what you're doing right or doing wrong. And so for us, we are still hanging bodies. We're still we'll buy an initial brand new chassis from Roush, but when it comes to repairing it or updating it or a spec change or something, we'll do that ourselves. And so we're equipped to do that with our facility in Statesville. That's what we do solely there, is the manufacturing piece, and then body and chassis is delivered over here to Statesville, and the guys bolt it together, put suspension, engine, whatnot in it, and set it up and take it to the racetrack.
Since Roush only has 2 cars now and you have 3, if they, I guess, hit on something or want to try something, is it possible that one of your 3 cars might, I hate to use the word test car, but, might try out something that maybe might benefit all 5 cars down the road?
That happens all the time. Absolutely all the time. There's stuff they'll go to the wind tunnel with, or run across 7-post rig or what have you, and they feel pretty good about it. And but they'll call us and say, kind of give us the data, ask us if we'd like to try it. Up to us if we want to try it. More times than not, it's something that's we know is going to end up on the car, and for them, that's what the relationship's all about. That's what we need to provide them to help build a better product. So in most cases, we're happy to do it. I can't really remember a time that we ever said, no, we're not interested in trying that. So usually by the time they get to the point they would like us to try something, they've really scienced it out and feel good about it, and just want a 500-mile durability test on it before they say, yep, that's the new spec. And so yeah, we've done that quite often.
I've with the lack of testing, and I know that you're in the owners meetings, and we keep hearing Gen 7 and how soon that could come down the pike. How does a company who's trying to get up to speed incorporate the development of the Gen 7 for your own practical purposes? How do you find the time to get ready to do that? And what do you think the Gen 7 will mean for mid-sized teams such as your own?
Yeah, the first part of your question is a great one, and I don't have a great answer for it. It is looming on the horizon, and I think coming quick. But there's still a lot of details to be worked out, and so how honestly we have no plan. We have no real thought on how it's all going to integrate. We're looking solely at 2020 with the product we got right now, with the relationship we got with Roush right now, on how to continue all that into next season, and just try to maximize what we got in our cars, and also knowing that, hey, 2020 might be the last year we're running these cars, so we don't need to be hung with a whole lot of new product, or just keep on revolutionizing the front end of these cars with suspension parts and whatnot, trying to get in a happy place, and then hopefully be able to run that product for the balance of next year while the Gen 7 car comes online. So as far as what it means for teams like ours, we're really we're pretty bullish on it. We think it could be good for a team like Front Row, and it's hard to keep up with the Penske's and Joe Gibbses, that Stuart Haas's, that have just great manufacturer alignments that are they're getting the best of everything. They're spending 10, 20 times the amount of time in a wind tunnel than a team like ours would, and just so much more technology that's going into every part and piece amongst their race cars. So with the Gen 7 car, I think the goal is you're not going to be necessarily racing as many components in the car. So, I think, it helps a team like ours kind of maybe become more competitive, that somebody's just not going to outspend us or out R&D us on every nut and bolt on the car. So, I'd like to think that NASCAR's goal is to have teams operate more like a front row does, and kind of budget wise, and I think that's. I think for us, just the little bit I know about it, I don't know if it really changes what a team like ours might spend in the future. But I think the teams that might be spending 3-4 times per car what we're spending, their spending rate might come down closer to ours. So, it'll still come down to who's the best driver you got and who's the best pit crew and what's the right setup you got underneath that car to determine who's going to win on Sundays. And I think teams like I mentioned before, they'll probably still have an advantage, but it just won't be a 4 or 5, 6/10 of a lap advantage. It's going to be more like a 2/10 of a second.
And who is doing your pit crews right now?
It's Roush does our 36 car, and I'm stammering because we actually switched it with the teams this week. So
you changed pit crews along with
crews too. Yeah, we kept the pit crews with the teams, the road crews, and they work so good together over the wall, behind the wall. We didn't want to mix all that up in the middle of the season. So starting this week, the Roush pit crew will be with the 36 car, the Stewart Haas pit crew will be with the 38 car, and then we've got a Ganassi crew that does the 34 car. So we got it all mixed up out there with the different groups, and with the roster limits, it makes it tough to when you're relying on an outsourced crew to have an organization have that many behind the wall people that they can justify on a roster. And so the way it works for us, those guys kind of work as backup crew members for their parent organization, but then they're primarily for us. So that's kind of why we got it all spread around like that.
Steve Phelps was on Sirius this week with Dave Moody, and Steve was also gracious enough to talk to the media during Daytona weeks. And he mentioned the other day that there are perhaps 5 or 6 manufacturers that have been interested in looking at NASCAR. A caller called in and said, well, what team would you put them with? And you guys have been very loyal to Ford, and we know Roush's relationship with them as well. But if the opportunity presented itself where you could have more factory involvement, because I don't think it takes a genius to look at the pecking order at Ford, where Stewart Haas and Team Penske, Team Penske they're at the top, then Stewart Haas, and then Roush, and then front row. If the opportunity came to improve your position, would it be hard not to listen to a proposition from an organization that is going to come in and spend money right out of the box and perhaps could elevate a furniture row, or a front row, or I'm thinking even Richard Childress Racing, their name had been mentioned with Dodge, if Dodge came in, because they were so far down the line as far as Hendrick, in getting that kind of deal. Would somebody like Front Row have to listen to a manufacturer?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. We've been with Ford for 10 years, so this is our 10th year, actually, and so we're, like you mentioned, we are very loyal to the Ford Performance Camp and really like those guys a lot. And and I think that's the goal of the Gen 7 car, is to modernize the car, make it more appealing to other manufacturers to come into the sport. We've heard the same rumors of this one and that one might be talking to NASCAR. Don't know anything other than that. And I think it'll take the Gen 7 car coming online for a season or two and ultimately settle on a new motor engine platform to go along with that, and then I think then you might see some other manufacturers jump in. But a team like ours, honestly, that was the method, the Bob Jenkins madness with buying BK Racing, was he wanted another charter to be able to have a 3-car team that if somebody came into the sport, and I care to look at it another way, is with Ford having 2 powerhouse organizations, Chevrolet having 2 powerhouse organizations, what if one of those organizations went with the new manufacturer? And now Ford chooses to invest heavily into Front Row Motorsports to replace one of the big 2 that might have bolted for somewhere else. It's kind of, I think for me, it's probably not rational to think that they would come in and look at a team that's 25th in the points and say, that's our team. But they may take one of those, may sink a lot of money into those teams, and then we may be able to, by default, let's say, be more appealing to Ford investment-wise to try to replace that team as one of the more dominant Ford teams. So, I think we're trying to position ourselves to take advantage of more manufacturers coming in the sport, whether it's in a better place with Ford or possibly potentially with somebody else. And having 3 charters out of 36 that are out there, I think we're in a good spot in that regard.
I would say absolutely, because the way that the RTA has set things up, you really have to have a charter to do business. I mean, I think it's also kind of hurt the people that want to come in, but for the people that are there, it's good. And something else that Steve mentioned was spending caps, and we see those all the time. Salary caps in the NFL, baseball, they all have a certain amount of money that they can spend. It's interesting to see. There's no limit here, but they are looking at these budgets. Even though it's proprietary and NASCAR's not sharing other people's budgets with you, I think you all are going to have an idea what the other companies are spending. Is there anything that would surprise you that could come out of that?
Yeah, I don't know about surprise me coming out of that. I guess my concern is the policing of it. It's almost everybody that owns one of these teams right now has another business, and so Bob Jenkins certainly in our case doesn't make his living out of Front Row Motorsports. It's coming completely opposite. So, and then Roger Penske certainly has lots of businesses, and maybe Joe Gibbs or Richard Childress. I don't know that they have. I guess Childress has a vineyard, but anyways, there's how do you keep, if that guy's got X number of employees on another payroll somewhere, how do you police it all? And so I guess unfortunately the culture of NASCAR has been to bend the rules a little bit over the years, and I'd love to equalize the playing field of how much you can spend on a race car to build it, because I think the numbers I've heard talked about are kind of in range of where Front Row spends in an annual season. So, that's where, I do think we could become more competitive. I just worry about how it gets policed, and so anyhow, we'll see what they come up with there, but it's an interesting concept. I just don't know how you police it.
How has the addition of the new crew chiefs helped Front Row? I mean, I know you're struggling right now, but have you seen a difference just in the way things are done, maybe morale, anything that you can point to that bringing in 3 brand new crew chiefs has changed the complexion of the operation?
Yeah, we brought in 2. Seth's been with us a couple of years, but I got to say, and even though we're not happy where we're at performance-wise, we didn't want to make changes as far as replacing people. We really like the 3 crew chiefs we got right now. I've never, ever been a part of an organization, whether it was here or all my years at Petty Enterprises, where we've got not just 2, but 3 crew chiefs that really, truly get along, that share information, that are friends, and Drew Blickensderfer and Mike Kelly and Seth Barber, and they all kind of worked at Roush over the last 10 years, moved on. Drew moved on to RPM for a while, but they've all, Kelly and Seth were crew chief and engineer on Ricky Stenhouse's Xfinity Championship cars years ago, so they're really tight, and so that they really, really, truly get along. And what I like seeing is Seth is the engineer, so he's very driven on working on sim and just getting that set up and going through the SMT data and really crunching it, letting his car chief worry about the race car. Mike Kelly, he's all about the race car. He is out there. He's barking orders. He's usually the last car that gets loaded here. He's sweating every detail on that car. He's making sure everything on the truck is just right. The pit box has got everything in order, and he lets his engineer take care of the setups and all that. And then Drew's just a high energy guy. He's all over the place and he's a fun guy to be around but he gets serious too and he's a good counterpoint for Michael McDowell, who's kind of a high energy guy too, so he can get Michael focused and going in the right direction. So I really like the group we got. They've all got different skill sets and complement each other quite a bit, and they get along and they share information and so we've never had a group that's been, I think, just aligned so well, and so I've really enjoyed working with those guys this year, and I really want them to see him have success, because I'd like to see it continue for some years to come for sure.
Well, and if anything goes wrong with Blickensdorfer, he can always be a bouncer in his next life.
Yeah. Well, we had to get him involved with a little skirmish we had at Phoenix this year. So I didn't know that he was a championship wrestler back in Indiana. So growing up, so he showed off those skills a little bit.
Here's the fun part of the interview, because I saved the best for last, but you guys kind of been in the rumor mill a little bit. Maybe you could have an alliance that could hook up with Stewart-Haas Racing in the future. Maybe this is a place for Cole Custer to come next year. Do you have your lineup set up for next year? And do you know what furniture? Gosh, I did it again. Front row. I'm so glad Furniture Row's gone, because it's so hard. It's kind of like you call your kids different names, right? Or do you know what the 2020 lineup will look like for Front Row Motorsports?
Yeah, first off, I'm going to say don't feel bad about the Furniture Row, front row thing. It happens all the time. And now nobody's got more aggravated than me, because I used to get some Furniture Row bills sometimes, and I'd open them up, and I'd be, oh my God, I'd be yelling at the parts guy, why did you order all this? And we'd realize it was a Furniture Row bill. So, anyways, we haven't, front row, as long as I've been here, we're year to year with the drivers. We're year to year with the sponsors, not by choice, trust me. And that's why we're year to year with the drivers is, we're trying to get the sponsors nailed down. So we're not committed. We're committed with Matt Tiff for next year. We got options with David and Michael that we'll exercise here in another month, and we're kind of working through with the partners we got around their programs right now. So I don't really see a big change with them. I've heard the same rumors on the Stewart-Haas thing, and I can tell you we haven't spoken to those guys. I think it just sounds like a good rumor. Cole Custer's running great in the Xfinity Series, and I guess it doesn't look like there's a place for him in the 4 cars right now. So I think somebody's just taken off with a good idea, maybe, or a thought, and tried to run with it. As far as that goes, like I said, next year is an odd year for us, for the whole industry, that we've got this year of. That we've got this Gen 7 car looming. So to think about changing an alliance partner, it's like changing a manufacturer, honestly. Even though Stewart-Haas is a Ford team, we're a Ford team, Roush's a Ford team, the cars, the parts and pieces, we buy the overwhelming majority of parts for our race cars from Roush. They have the parts that are specifically built for their cars. So our cars are so much different than a Stewart-Haas car, just every part and piece. But the only thing that's the same is the engine that's in there that comes from Roush Yates. And so to think about just eliminating everything we own, establish all this new inventory for 1 year with the Gen 7 car coming, it's kind of crazy to think that somebody would do that. So, I don't know. I get hit up with that one all the time, but there's nothing to that.
Could you make room for a 4th team if there were some sort of compensation to go along with bringing Cole Custer in to kind of keep him in a Ford for a year, until they had room for him at Stewart-Haas?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we've bitten off a lot adding a 3rd team this year, and like we talked about early on with the 2 shops and the space and all that, we're not anywhere close to our goals with one car right now, let alone three. So I think you'd like to think that you've got a pretty stabilized 3-car program before you think about a 4-car program, and I just don't see how we do it, and we wouldn't have a charter to do it with anyway, so I think that's very highly not likely.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, and I really wish you guys luck this weekend, and hopefully the monkey gets off your back. I mean, sometimes just a crew chief swap can make all the difference.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, I'm excited to see it. But like I said, we've had good speed in our cars. We've just got to finish races, and we'll hit our mark. So hopefully it starts this weekend.
Appreciate your time, Cherry.
Yep. Thank you, Lee.